Hello everyone, my name's Christopher Riker. Today what I'll be doing is I'll be taking you through a demonstration / training of how to create a mergeable template and how to utilize dynamic clauses within CobbleStone's contract insight software. So first off, what you would do is you would go to the Manage Setup menu in the main menu ribbon, and you would navigate to the document template section. And what we're going to be doing today is we're actually going to take a look at a template I've already created in the system. If you wanted to create a new template from scratch, what you would do is go to the template list and then click Create New Template. We're going to use my existing consulting agreement template, so I'm going to go ahead and click Manage Edit on that. The very first step that you would take when creating a template would be filling out the template overview. Template overview allows you to basically fill out the initial information of that template, such as giving it a name, giving it a description, a template area. This allows you to specify where in the system can you create a template. You can create them on contract records, on vendor records, request records, procurement records. Really, the sky's the limit. If it's a primary table within Contract Insight, you can create a template off of it. Based on the template area, as you'll see later in this training, you'll be able to select mergeable fields from that table in order to merge onto the template and start drafting that contract. Email on change. This would allow you to type in an email address or a couple email addresses, as long as they're comma separated, into this box. And anytime a configuration change is made, so someone uploads a new version of the template, somebody adds more mergeable fields, changes rules and conditions, whatever email is contained within this box right here will receive a notification letting them know that a change has been made to this template. Oftentimes, if you're initially creating a template, what I'll recommend is don't fill this out right away. Come back once you're done and edit it. The reason for this is if you fill it out at the beginning, as we're initially setting up the template, the system will take that as a configuration change and alert you every single time. So my advice, come back here, do it at the end. Then we are going to set the template to active. This is basically the on-off switch for the template. This will tell you, or a user of Contract Insight, if you're actually able to use this template when you're on a contract record. These bottom two items deal with if you have purchased our signing module. I'm not going to get too much into them. My focus today is going to be the templates. But if you are using our signing tool, basically what this will do is it'll allow you to select the participant authentication. So are they going to enter a secure PIN, or will they just access this through a URL? And with the signing tool, you also have the IntelliSign feature, which is a quick sign. This is basically enabling or disabling that quick sign feature from this template. I'm going to press update information and move on to the next step of mergeable fields. But before I do that, one thing I'd like to point out to all users of Contract Insight would be these question mark icons right here. If you ever find yourself struggling, these question mark icons actually do provide some quick help tooltip information. So you can always hover over them for some refresher information. The next step is going to be selecting the mergeable fields. Now, because I picked contract committals as my primary template area, it's going to give me access to all of the fields that are associated with the contract details within Contract Insight. Everything on this left-hand side right here, these are all the available fields that can be selected to either merge into the template or be applied as a rule and condition in other given areas of this template. I'll just scroll down, just let you guys take a quick look at these. Everything on the right-hand side is information that I want merged into my template as a placeholder. So everything you select right here, the system is going to give you a placeholder that you can then merge onto the template. I am quickly going to swap a field out just to show you. So I pulled out the counterparty name. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the counterparty section, grab the company name, bring it over. and then it'll be the last field in my list because it was most recently brought over. You do have the ability to change the display name of these mergeable fields. The reason for this is you can have some fields with the same names. So, for example, with the contracts, or the vendors, I should say, excuse me, you should be merging in vendor information, so maybe their street address and such. If you guys are familiar, we do have a master reference data table called locations, where you could also be merging address information with similar fields: street, one, city, postal code, etc. So they're on different tables, so they can have similar or same names. You can't have two placeholders with the same name. So the reason you would want to change the display name is so you can make it unique, so the system knows where to merge the data appropriately. It's also important to note with date fields, you do have the ability to format how that date is going to be merged in. When you're in the system, it's primarily a numeric date, kind of like you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of my computer. But you can actually hover over these and look at the various different formats in which the date can be merged into your system. I'm going to pick month, day, year. I think it looks the best. Do it for the expiration and effective dates. Anytime you've finished making your changes, you're then going to press save and continue, or save mergeable fields, and then you'll move on to the next step, which is the rules and conditions. The rules and conditions is an area in which you can set up a rule around the template. This will basically dictate when a user can actually call upon this template within the system. For my consulting agreement template, I've added a rule saying I only want users to be able to call upon this template when the type name is specifically equal to consulting agreement. If I were to remove this rule and save and preview, you're going to see a list of all of my contracts in the system. So you'll see lease agreements, service agreements, NDAs, software agreements. I only want them to be able to call upon this when it's a consulting agreement. So I'll add a condition. This is going to be a list of all of my mergeable fields. So I'll go and find that contract type name. And I'll type in consulting agreement again. I'll press save. And you may have noticed I made a spelling error in my rule. That's okay. What I'll do is I will just update that. Press save and preview. And now it's appropriately showing me all of my consulting agreements. If you want to avoid errors like that, you most definitely can. Keep in mind the type name is linked to a master reference data table for contract types. On this master reference data table, there is a unique system ID. You could use that instead if you're worried about making a typo like I did. Completely up to you. You would just have to make sure you selected that in the mergeable fields section. If at any point you need to update your mergeable fields because you need to add them as a rule, whether it be for the rules and conditions around the template, or as you'll see in a little bit, rules and conditions around clauses, you can always come back here and add more mergeable fields. Now that my rules and conditions are done, I am going to click Clause Library Reference and go a little bit into our clause library. Underneath the Setup menu again, there will be a clause library. Here, users will have the ability to go and add clauses into Contract Insight. These clauses are just plain text clauses. They are clause library references. So if you're familiar with adding data into a master reference data table, what you'll do is you'll click Add Clause. You'll give that clause a name, type the text that is associated with that clause, and then mark it as active. Once the clause is marked as active, you can assign it to a template. Here's a list of all the clauses that I have in my system. I have one for term, differing governing laws, assignment. If it's your first time using the clause library, or you're a new user of Contract Insight, and you navigate to the clause library, you may notice it's blank. This is the intent. We kind of leave the clause library up to the client to define. You guys are the masters of your contract, so we want to give you the flexibility and manageability to go in and put in whatever clauses you would like. I now have to navigate back to my template. Perfectly fine. I'll go to Setup, document templates and click on my template list. Click Manage Edit on the consulting agreement again. And let me open up the clause library references. So I added 2 clauses from the library. As you can see, I have those other 3 right here. But the only 2 that I'm using on this template would be the governing law for New York and the governing law for Delaware. I applied those 2 clauses by clicking Add Clause. If I wanted to view the language behind that clause, I can click View Reference. It's going to show me all of the information associated with that clause. And then I have the ability to configure a rule around this clause library reference, telling the system when merging the template which clause I want to merge in. So if I click on the rule for governing law New York, I have a drop down on my contract record where I can actually pick the governing law. And there's 2 options, New York or Delaware. So the first rule I have set up for this clause is governing law is equal to the value of New York. And then I did the same for the governing law of Delaware. I'll just open that up real quick just to show you. And then you can see the rule as well. You can add as many of these clauses as you'd like to your templates. The next thing we're going to get into is a mergeable clause. Now, you guys are probably wondering, Chris, you just went over the mergeable clauses with the clause library reference. Yes, I did, but the mergeable clauses, not the clause library reference, offer a little bit more advanced functionality. So mergeable clauses are actually mergeable sections of a document template. So instead of just merging in that plain text from the clause library, I can actually go into Microsoft Word and set up the clause however I want. It gives me a little bit more flexibility when it comes to formatting the clause, such as bolding, italicizing. You can change font sizes, font colors. You can have placeholders within these mergeable clauses. You can have clause library references contained within these clause library or mergeable clauses. Sky's really the limit. And same as the clause library reference, you have the ability to add the assigned clause from your mergeable clause list. And then you have the ability to view that reference. So it's just going to give you some summary information about that clause. And then optionally, you can put a rule around this clause telling the system when you want it to merge in. We do have some help information right here for explanation of what a mergeable clause does versus clause library reference if there's ever any confusion. The document templates section does house the mergeable clause list. The setup of a mergeable clause is very similar to the setup of a document template. So you're basically going to repeat the steps you see above, where you go through the clause overview, give the clause a name. If you're going to merge fields into that clause, you'll select the mergeable fields. If you want to apply any clause library references, you can select clauses from your clause library you would like to merge into that mergeable clause. And then if you want to include any static content as well. We're going to hop into static content right now, actually. If you guys have more questions about mergeable clauses, I know we're kind of under a time limit right now, you can always reach out to your implementation specialist for an optimization session or your account rep for an optimization session or a demo. Finally, the last thing we're going to go over in the core setup would be the static content. Static content is very similar to a clause library reference, where it has the ability to merge in information as plain text. However, the key difference between a clause library reference and static content is static content doesn't have rules around it. So there's 2 different types of content you can merge in. You can merge in today's date. This would be the date when you clicked merge to create that template. Or you can merge in plain text, where you have the ability to just give that content a title and then type in whatever information you want to have a placeholder be created for and merge into that template. Optionally, you do have the ability to have subtables merged onto your template. So if you have any user-defined subtables or out-of-the-box subtables on your contract records that you would like merged into your document, the setup for this is very simple. What you would do is you would select the subtable in question that you would like to merge in. For example, maybe I want to merge in the amendment subtable. You can press Save Subtable. And after you have your subtable selected, you'll then go to your Manage Layout. From here, you can select the list of subtables you wish to merge onto your template. Optionally, you can set up rules and conditions dictating when this subtable would merge in, very similar to a clause library reference clause or a mergeable clause. And then what you have the ability to do is go through and pick the column headers that you wish to have merged into your template. After you've selected your column headers, you'll then press Save Subtable, and you're ready to move on to your next subtable or the next step. Now for this template, I am not merging any subtables, so I'm going to deselect that and press Save. Now, I'm going to skip over the approvals and signatures. If you guys have questions about approvals and signatures, you can always schedule an optimization session or a demo if you don't have the module. But what I'm going to do now is go to the content setup. So as I've been going through the core setup and the subtable setup, you've seen me select items in which I want merged onto my template. So I've gone through, I've been clicking, I've been telling the system, hey, I want this, I want that. Well, if I click on the mergeable content, what this is going to do is basically present me with a list of mergeable placeholders that I can now go and put into my template. So it's as easy as copying and pasting as many times as you'd like this information into your template. And as you can see, I have the fields, clause library references, mergeable clauses, static content, and my subtables. So this is what my base consulting agreement looks like. So this is before I went and I created a template within Contract Insight. And maybe what I would do in my day-to-day use of my template was I would open up the Word template, come in and manually type this information and remove the highlights. Now what I've done using Contract Insight's templating tool is I've gone and I've placed these placeholders into the document so the system knows where to merge that information in. I turn the consulting fee into a mergeable clause. If I go to my governing law, you'll see I have both governing laws right here. And then what I did was I went to the attachment section and I uploaded that template into the system by clicking Upload File. This is pretty straightforward to use. You'll click Upload File, you'll select, you can browse your computer for the file in which you're looking for, and then press Upload. If you have a cloud drive set up or integrated with your Contract Insight account, you can always click Import from Cloud and grab that file from either your Google Drive or Office 365 account. And if I expand on this, you'll see the multiple versions of this template that I've gone and uploaded into my system. We actually started working with this template back in May of 2020. It was updated again in November, and I updated it shortly before this call. To upload the version of the template, all you have to do is click the upload button right here on the template line item. What it'll do is it'll archive the previous versions and publish the most recent version of that template. The system will always call upon the published version of the template. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how you guys can use this template. So in my system, I went ahead and I added a contract record. And I'll go ahead and search for that contract. It's with ABC Company. And here's that contract I added into the system. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create a template based off of the information I've entered into this agreement. So as you can see, I have a consulting fee selected to merge into my mergeable clause. I have a governing law selected for my clause library reference, counterparty names filled out, and I have an effective date such to merge in. What you can do is you can scroll down to this document processing section. And what you can do is click on Merge Templates, and it'll take you quickly to the Merge Templates section. If I scroll all the way up, you'll see I can just scroll down to that section. That link is just simply a slingshot link. Now what I'm going to do is click merge standard template. And what I can do is I can select from a list of templates based on the rules and conditions that I have set up, what template I would like merged over. And then I can press save and continue. You'll notice the system's going to think for a second, and then it's going to present me with a merged version of that document. So if I open this up, you'll see it merged in the effective date. It merged in ABC company as well as their vendor information. If I scroll down, you'll see it merged in that consulting fee, which is one of those mergeable clauses I had. You'll see on the contract record there was the consulting fee in text, as well as the consulting fee in a monetary amount. And if I scroll down to the governing law, you'll see that governing law of New York was merged in based on that New York value you saw on the contract record. And again, just to show you, this is what the base looks like. And of course, the merged document. And when we hop into our Q&A, I will have these templates ready. I can pull up and show you guys for any sort of questions. Now what I can do is if I want to attach this template back to the record, I would first have to manage the document, scroll down and check it out. This then allows me to make changes to that template if I please. And then what I can do is upload new versions of it. So let's say I merge this template and it isn't 100%. Maybe I need to go in and make some changes. You would make all of those changes within Word. Just click Edit, make your changes, and then upload here. The system will do something very similar to the initial template upload, where it would archive the original and publish the new version. And then the attach button will always go and grab the most recent version. I'll click attach. Click OK. And now if I go back to the record details for my contract record, you'll see the attached template right here. Thank you so much for joining me on this session for templates and dynamic clauses. Have a great day.